Rolled the Tide 2 years in a row. What's up, Sooner Nation, and welcome back to the WhackoReview Podcast, where we go over all things OU football every Monday after the weekend of matchups behind us. I'm Steve Curtis, the voice behind Wacko Sooners. And your boys, the Oklahoma Sooners, are 8-2 after rolling the Alabama Crimson Tide in Bryant-Denny Stadium on Saturday night, 23-21. They've risen to the number 8 spot in the AP poll, and they'll most likely be in those top 10 teams in the college football playoff rankings when that comes out later on Tuesday evening. And they'll probably, with this third stretch being in the top 10 teams in there, they will have a spot in the college football playoff. And if they win out their last 2 games, Missouri and LSU both at home, the Oklahoma Sooners are going to be in the college football playoff. Now, let's not get ahead of ourselves too much here. That's still 2 weeks from now, knowing whether or not we're still going to be there. But all that being said, we have plenty to dive into today. This fine Monday in the middle of November. We've got to review Oklahoma's performance, that 23-21 victory, where they went wrong, which there were some spots there, where they went right, which there's plenty of them as well, what to focus on heading into these last 2 games with Missouri and LSU, both Tigers, or the other 2 Tigers, because we already faced Auburn at home. We got all 3 SEC Tigers at home this year, but we've got to think about where we need to move from this Alabama victory into these last 2 Tiger Fests as we close out the season. We're going to break it all down right here on Wacko Sooners. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell button so you never miss an episode. And please go follow us on all of our socials, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter X, all at Wacko Sooners, for live news updates, game highlights, and of course, a couple of memes and reels to keep it lighthearted and fun like we like it here in Sooner Nation. And also, we just started releasing the Wacko Preview and Wacko Review podcasts on Spotify, also at Wacko Sooners, so go check those out as well if you prefer listening to us over there. All right, so this game, start to finish, was an absolute slug match. It was a far cry from last year's domination of 24-3, but both were so equally rewarding in their own different ways. It was fantastic to watch both of these. I was fortunate enough to be at OU Alabama last year. I wasn't able to make the trip to T-Town this year, unfortunately. But let's review this game, shall we? So on offense, Alabama had 406 total yards, 326 pass, 80 rush, 5.4 yards per play. They had 23 first downs. They were 5 of 13 on third, 2 of 3 on fourth. If you gave me that stat line right there, if I had not watched the game, if you give me that stat line right there, just what Alabama's offense produced offensively, I'd say, yeah, Oklahoma probably loses that game. Just with how efficient we know Ty Simpson to be. Oh, and then add that 3 touchdowns as well. So add all of that together and what we knew about Ty Simpson going into Saturday afternoon. You give me all those numbers, I'm going to tell you Oklahoma loses that game, Alabama wins. But then 5 tackles for loss, Alabama allows 5 tackles for loss, allows 4 sacks, gives up 2 fumbles and an interception that was housed for a touchdown. You give me those things, I'm going to start thinking about that a little differently. I'll be like, maybe Oklahoma does have a chance to pull it out, and they did. So then Oklahoma's offense had only 212 total yards. So Alabama outgained Oklahoma by almost 200 yards. Just under 200 yards, like 194. But Oklahoma had the 212 total, 138 pass, 74 rush. That didn't look great. 4.2 yards per play, 12 first downs. They were 3 of 13 on third down. They didn't go for it at all on fourth down. But the big kicker here, aside from Tate Sandell and his Daisy Dukes, 0 turnovers from Oklahoma's offense. John Mateer did not throw any interceptions. Nobody fumbled the ball. Huge. Given how much Alabama has thrived off of takeaways this season. That Alabama defense, I think, was leading the SEC in takeaways going into the matchup on Saturday. And then, of course, the Oklahoma offensive line only allowed 2 sacks, which honestly, pretty dang good, all things considered, that you've got a redshirt freshman and 2 true freshmen in there, and a center that's still kind of getting used to this really heavy SEC play, and then a right guard that's all right. Get all things considered on that offensive line, 2 sacks, I'm happy. I'm happy with that offensive line performance. So those are the offensive stats right there. We can break it down here a little bit more specifically. John Mateer, his passing game, did what he had to do. He had fewer total yards than I expected, because I think he had 138 passing yards, and then he had roughly, I think, like 23 rush yards, I want to say. We can check that box score here really quickly. Actually, he had he had 23 rushing yards. So he had right at 165 total yards, which, if you remember on Friday's preview, I said I want to see him have somewhere between 200 and 250 total yards. It worked out. He didn't have as many yards as I thought he would need to for us to win, but we were still able to do it. He didn't have to be absolutely insane. So he was 15 of 23, so that's 65.2 completion, 138 total yards of passing, 23 rush yards, 1 rushing touchdown on a 20-yard run. That thing was crazy, how he just breaks right up and then is just spinning around as he's getting hit by 4 or 5 different guys to fall into the end zone for that 1 rushing touchdown he had. No touchdowns through the air, no interceptions. Again, wasn't flashy, but he didn't make critical mistakes that put us in a position to cost us the game. There were some moments where you're like, yeah, that's not great, but it wasn't giving Alabama the ball on our own 20, where they could just go kick a field goal. Well, actually, I don't know, because their field goal kicker was terrible, but I digress. And just John didn't make those critical game-breaking mistakes like he did against Ole Miss, where he tried to play hero ball, or against Texas, where he threw 3 interceptions, right? So, fantastic. I'll take that. And yeah, he's still figuring things out after the injury, and there's a lot of stuff going on with figuring out the line still, and then the receivers not necessarily being the biggest, baddest, craziest, most dynamic guys in the world. They're all adequate, but it's just a matter of he did what he had to do, and it was enough. As for the running backs, I'm not happy. Xavier Robinson, sophomore running back, 6 foot, 235 pounds. He had 10 carries for 34 yards. So easy math, average of 3.4. No touchdowns. Yeah, I'm not super thrilled about that. I mean, I get it. He did get banged up. He was put through the ringer early. Alabama was just collapsing on him, making him fight for every bit of ground he got. And I think he was in the injury tent for the better part of half an hour. And he came out, and the trainer said he can't go back out there. And he said, screw that, grabbed his helmet and went back out there and toughed it out. He was not super excited at the end of the game. He just looked miserable. So I get it that X wasn't where he needed to be by the end of the game, and it wasn't working as well as it needed to. I totally get that. Tons of grace for X there. A lot more of it is on Arbuckle, I think. Got to scheme up some more stuff for him. That yes, he's an absolute power back and will run through you, but you need to cook up some other stuff just to get him a little bit more space, where he has a chance to take 2 or 3 extra steps to where he can break free and go off on a run. Tory Blaylock, this is just sad. 4 carries for 1 yard. So that's an average of like 0.25 yards per carry. Oh, man. And if you round that up, it's around a foot a carry, which, that stinks. Which, again, goes down to Arbuckle. Scheme stuff open for a guy that's as quick as Tory, who's really good on his feet, really good at shifting around. Make some stuff happen for him to where you can utilize that, because running up the gut with Tory is not going to work like it will with X, just because of their difference in size. Yeah, need to see some more dynamic play calling when it comes to the run game. Because if you're able to run the ball consistently there, if X had another 100-yard game and Tory was able to get 20 or 30 yards, the whole dynamic of the game changes. I think it would have at least. You're biting your nails in terror. There's less of that if you're able to run the ball more consistently. Already talked about the offensive line just a little bit. We can talk a little bit more about it. Michael Fasusi. Holy smokes. I think it was, of the 29 dropbacks that Mateer had, 6 of which he ended up running off on because he had the 23 passes. But 29 dropbacks by the quarterback. Fasusi allowed 0 pressures, 0 sacks, you name it. And they said we were crazy for starting a freshman at left tackle. Michael Fasusi is the real deal. Him, Eddie Pierre-Louis at left guard, and then Ryan Foje at right tackle. Those guys are the nucleus for your offensive line in the future. And then you've got Cooper Hackett, Caden Penny, Noah Bess, and Deacon Schmidt. Those 4 guys all coming in within the next 2 years. Whoa. Oklahoma's going to have some fun offensive line play over the next couple of years, I think. It's going to be getting better over the next 2-3 years. And it's going to stay pretty good, I think, after a while. Just gotta get over that hump. I think we're getting somewhere, though. And you started to see that the line was really gelling in pass pro on Saturday. I mean, heck, you only allowed John to get sacked twice. Did have the intentional grounding thing, and that just, he was about to get lit the heck up. Is what it is. But, yeah, this line is light years ahead of last year's. They didn't have to play absolutely like gaudy monstrosities on Saturday like they did last year, where all 5 of those guys on the offensive line in 2024 in that Alabama game played the best game of their life. And it wasn't required to do that on Saturday because your line is just that much better. You don't need their absolute best. You need pretty dang good, which they gave you, which, fantastic. Solid offensive line play. I will take it. You saw Foje at right tackle. Of course, he did a great job. Saw Derek Simmons come back from his concussion watch there. He was in for, I think it was about 3 series. You saw a little bit of rotation there, which is fine. Let Foje stay healthy because you need your young guys to be healthy going into these last couple of games. You need that depth, so rotate some guys here and there. Absolutely. As for penalties on the offensive line, massive improvement, right? 1 false start, 1 illegal formation. Now, the illegal formation one's just stupid, but that's still a massive improvement compared to previous weeks. I remember the Auburn game. It was offensive line penalty after O-line penalty. Texas had a few of those as well. Ole Miss had some of those. Tennessee had some of those. This one was much better. 2 weeks of prep, I think, is great. Having those younger guys really solidified as, you're going to start. You got to clean it up. So I think that was great. Overall, offense was not an explosive performance that we'd all think about whenever we watch OU football. But at the end of the day, they did what they had to do. They got the job done. When given a short field, they went and scored a touchdown. When given the opportunity to go get Tate Sandell in field goal range, they got him in field goal range. And Tate Sandell and the Daisy Dukes drilled it like he always does. So the great thing, and we will talk about the defense here in just a minute, the defense is playing A+ ball. Special teams is playing A+ ball. The offense was playing B- ball before John was injured against Auburn. Imagine if that offense had imagine that John hadn't gotten hurt. And then also imagine that the offense altogether had started playing A+ ball, had found their A+ stride. Imagine where we would be right now. Because I think, I have no qualms about saying this. If John Mateer doesn't break his thumb, I think there's a very solid chance that the Oklahoma Sooners would be 10-0 right now. I think there's a very solid possibility. Now, again, you know me. I don't like the what-if game because what if or almost doesn't matter. We lost to Texas. We lost to Ole Miss unequivocally. No excuse. Is what it is. We deserve to be 8-2 because we did not play like the team that should have won those days. It is what it is. But I think if John Mateer didn't get injured, Oklahoma would be 10-0. The offense would have found an even better rhythm, and they'd have looked even better against Alabama on Saturday on offense. And we can talk about that whole A+ game if the offense can find that, here in our third segment, talking about moving ahead. As for the defense, just when you thought it couldn't get any better. Holy smokes. Let's start by going through the drive sheet and kind of just going through that. Like how I started off talking about the offenses. If you give me Alabama's stat lines and everything, what do I think the outcome of the game was? If you were to tell me that Alabama's drives would be as follows: 3 yards, punt, -8 yards, punt, 57 yards, interception, 72 yards, touchdown, then a fumble off a punt return and give it right back to Oklahoma, 78 yards, touchdown, 69 yards, missed field goal, halftime, 75 yards, touchdown, 7 yards, punt, 10 yards, fumble, -2 yards, punt, 42 yards, turnover on downs. Given that those turnovers are there in that drive sheet, I'd be less inclined to say Alabama would be more likely to win. But again, you had 3 touchdowns, and Oklahoma's offense had 1. So it would lead me to believe, yeah, Alabama probably still wins that game. But then, Oklahoma's defense was 8 of 13 on third down, so they only allowed, I think it was, 5 third down conversions. OU's defense was 1 of 3 on fourth down. That's not great, but they had 75 total tackles. 5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks. Yeah, I feel pretty good about that, knowing how aggressive Brent Venables' defenses are and just how intense all of those guys on that side of the ball are. And it's hard for me to pick a player of the game. It's hard for me to pick a man of the hour on defense because there are so many guys that played out of their minds, because you have 6 guys that had more than 5 tackles. All right? Because you have Peyton Bowen, Robert Spears-Jennings, Courtland Guillory, and Eli Bowen. They all had 5. Sammy Omosigho had 6. Kip Lewis had 7. And perhaps the most important one was the first play right after the 2-minute warning, when it's Alabama's final drive and it's 1st and 10. Kip just comes flying up the middle and wraps up Ty Simpson's leg and gets his knee down before Simpson can get rid of the ball. And that sets up Alabama on a 2nd and 21, where they don't get it on 2nd down. They shorten it on 3rd and make it 4th and 6. And then that sets up Peyton Bowen for the pass breakup on 4th and 6 to win the game. So Kip Lewis came in clutch there. And apparently, as the 2-minute warning started, his hip and his thigh were cramping up on him. So Joe Castiglione, Oklahoma's athletic director on the sidelines, comes up to Kip and he says, "Yo, go dance around, go jump around, loosen it up." Kip does that for the whole 2-minute warning. In the very first play after the 2-minute warning, he goes and makes the sack that made the game. Or pretty much set up the closeout, I should say. So, love Kip. Absolutely love Kip. I remember at the Ole Miss game, he was coming over the student section, hyping everybody up. I see him getting the faces of all the student sections at the places he goes to play. Kip's just a dog. Man, this defense just in general just played out of their minds, right? Because then you have the 2 fumbles, courtesy of Jaydan Hardy punching it out of Ryan Williams' hands on that punt, and then it was recovered by Sammy Omosigho. And then Taylor Wein strip sacking Ty Simpson there in probably the 3rd quarter, I want to say. And then it was recovered by Kendall Daniels. That was huge. Taylor Wein stepped up, and we'll talk about him here in a second as well. And then, of course, Eli Bowen's pick 6, 87 yards, right? Because remember, he picked off Jalen Milroe last year. First interception of the game, probably, I think, the 2nd play of the 3rd quarter. And got the interception. Wasn't able to house it then, but he housed it this time. 87 yards. So proud of that guy. Our undersized little corner. He's a little guy. But man, can he play football. Man, can he play football. And then, of course, after that fumble caused by Jaydan Hardy, recovered by Sammy Omosigho, you had John Mateer's 20-yard touchdown run. And then Taylor Wein's strip sack. You had Tate Sandell go and kick a great field goal. So 17 points off of 3 turnovers, and Oklahoma scored 23 points total. So the offense put themselves in the position, or put Tate Sandell in position to kick 2 field goals. But this game was won by the defense. Absolutely. And all of this without our Mason Thomas and Gentry Williams. Without our best defensive end and without our best corner. And I talked on Friday how in R. Mason's absence, the defensive ends, Taylor Wein, PJ Adebawore, Marvin Jones Jr., Danny Okoye, they were going to have to step up and compensate for his loss. Now, they did that in the first half against Auburn. Absolutely. I mean, heck, they had 7 sacks in the first half against Auburn without R. Mason Thomas. So I had no doubt that they'd step up. I just didn't know that it would come in such a big way, such as Taylor Wein's strip sack. And that man played some great football on Saturday. Holy smokes, the strip sack, he did a great job getting great pressure in there. And how about that Alabama missed field goal right before halftime when he jumps over the line and gets his fingers on the ball, just hits it out just a little bit. Huge. Absolutely huge. This kid's insane. Absolutely insane. And I remember late in the summer, Miguel Chavis in summer practices and fall camp was being interviewed, and he's talking, oh yeah, Taylor Wein's going to be a breakout player. And no one but the coaches and players on Oklahoma's, like everyone not in the Switzer Center, was not talking about Taylor Wein. But Miguel Chavis was talking about Taylor Wein. Brent Venables was talking about Taylor Wein. R. Mason Thomas was talking about Taylor Wein. And Taylor Wein, Mr. Wine and Dine Wine Time, showed up and played some amazing football. Just had a day. And you can look at probably every player on that defense and say they all had at least one moment where they had a big one that really was important to the rest of the game. Kobe McKenzie had a great stop there, stopping, I think it was Daniel Hill, from breaking out and getting a big run. That's not going to make tons of highlight tapes, but he still went and stopped it, and that teed up Oklahoma to force a punt, if I'm not mistaken, right? Courtland Guillory with that big pass breakup on, I think it was Alabama's second drive, where Alabama fans are mad that it wasn't PI. If anything, it was OPI, with Ryan Williams hanging all over Courtland on the way out. But that was big. Eli Bowen's pick 6. Robert Spears-Jennings should have kept that interception that he got in the end zone because Kendall Daniels on pass interference. That did not affect the play whatsoever. Ty Simpson threw it right to RJ. So, but again, we're not going to complain about officiating too much because you still should play better than the officiating, which Oklahoma did. Yeah, just... And then how about Devon Jordan? Sophomore cornerback, just had his first career sack on Saturday, ran right up the A-gap, ran into Daniel Hill, who was in pass block. Now, mind you, Daniel Hill, that Alabama running back, he's 6'1", 244 pounds. And Devon Jordan, a sophomore corner, so not a big, powerful dude. I mean, don't get me wrong, powerful, but he's not a big guy. Comes in, gets in Hill's face, moves him out of the way, and eats up Ty Simpson. Goes right through Hill and sacks Simpson to the dirt and just wraps up on his foot and just pulls him down. Absolutely huge play from the sophomore. Oh, man, that was great. And, yeah, I can't say enough praises about this Oklahoma defense after this performance on Saturday. They continue to show the world that they are one of the top defenses in the country. And sure, they're lacking in some respects in the secondary. They did give up 326 passing yards from Alabama. They gave up 393 versus Tennessee. They gave up a ton against Ole Miss as well. But they're able to make up for their deficiencies as a unit, the whole defense. They are missing some stuff here and there, but they're able to compensate. They're able to pick up the slack on defense, which is fantastic. And remember, I grew up in the Baker Mayfield, Lincoln Riley, late Bob Stoops era Oklahoma, where it's offense, and defense could not stop anything. And I used to love watching those big explosive offenses, and don't get me wrong, I still do. But there's something magical about watching absolutely monstrous and aggressive defense playing at such a high level. And I honestly love watching defense more than I like watching offense, personally. But yeah, this defense is legit. I don't want to hear any excuses about, oh, Oklahoma's defense got lucky. And on that note, actually, over the last 2 days of comment sections on TikTok, Instagram, you name it. Alabama fans are coping so hard about the fact that, Oklahoma didn't beat Alabama. Alabama beat ourselves, blah, blah, blah. Here's the thing. Oklahoma forced 3 turnovers and did not turn the ball over. Sure, and yes, I did say this against Ole Miss. We beat ourselves in that we put ourselves in a position to be beat. We made mistakes that put ourselves in a position to lose. And when I say that, that's what I mean. Most of these Alabama fans, when they're saying, we beat ourselves, Oklahoma only scored 1 offensive touchdown and it was with a short field because they got a turnover. Yeah, the defense caused that. We made stupid mistakes. If we'd completed this pass or we'd completed that pass. You didn't complete this or that pass that would have got you in a better winning position because the Oklahoma defense played like a freaking monster. But Oklahoma's offense is so bad. Yeah, it wasn't great, but it did enough to the point where you didn't lose. I will take a mediocre offense that can go get us field goals with a great kicker and an elite defense that causes an offense to make mistakes every day of the week and then 10 times every freaking Saturday. And I think it's really funny. Oklahoma's defense, objectively, or not even objectively, they just win the game. Oklahoma's defense goes out and they win the game. And the whole world is saying, Alabama beat themselves. Okay. Oklahoma loses to Texas 23-6. And everyone's like, Oklahoma sucks, not Oklahoma beat themselves. Texas loses to Georgia 35-10. Hallelujah, by the way. And everyone's like, yeah, Texas just isn't great. But, they did it to themselves. Their receivers aren't doing good stuff. They could have done this, they could have done that. No. You lose the game, period. I don't care if you make a mistake and it's on you. You say, yeah, I made that, our team made that mistake. Therefore, we deserve to lose. But it's not I don't think, it's not you beat yourself and that's the only reason you lose. No, Oklahoma's defense forced you to make mistakes and you lost because of that. Because you weren't capable of beating them when they put you in those positions where you had to beat them. Oklahoma's defense made more plays than Alabama did, period. And won the game as a result. So all those Alabama fans, we beat ourselves. No, you didn't. Oklahoma's defense beat you. Take your L's like a grown-up. Sit down. Stop whining. Understand that Kalen DeBoer has now started the narrative that he has an Oklahoma problem. Just like Kirby Smart has the narrative of having an Alabama problem. Just like Steve Sarkisian now has a Georgia problem. And Brent Venables has a Texas problem. That circle of life right there between Texas, Oklahoma, Alabama, and Georgia. Just take your L's like a grown-up. Stop whining. Stop trying to detract from the fact that Oklahoma's defense outplayed Alabama. Stop. Be a grown-up. You were spoiled for the better part of 20 years with Nick Saban. I understand. You're a proud fan base. I get it. I really get it. But just take the L. Take the L and stop whining. It's embarrassing. We get it. You're sad that you're not going to win a natty again this year. Or odds are, if y'all still do, I'll come back on here and eat my words. But just be mature. Be respectful about it. Be respectful about it. So, that's the game breakdown. So, we've got 2 games left this season. We have Missouri at home and LSU at home. And we've got to move forward. Got to go back to work, as Brent said in his press conference after the game on Saturday night. Now, we all said, and by we all, I mean everyone, after the Tennessee win 2 weeks ago, said that was the signature OU win in the Brent Venables era. Going to a ranked opponent, winning on the road in a defensive masterclass, forcing turnovers, taking the lead, and offense not screwing itself in the foot. Or shooting itself in the foot, screwing itself elsewhere. And that leads me back to the whole defense is playing AA+, special team is playing AA+. Imagine if the offense is able to find that AA+, right? And it's funny, the coaches and the players have all said that in recent weeks, they kind of flipped a hard to kill switch. And that kind of comes from those t-shirts that the players were all wearing after the game. It's got hard to kill on the front and enough is enough on the back. And David Stone was talking about it after the game on Saturday. Just, we made mistakes. We can't be doing that. We're going to live and die on it. We're not going to die easy. We're going to fight to the end every dang day. And they did that against Tennessee, and they won. They did that against Alabama, and they won. And it seems to me that watching them play on the field, there is a different mentality in these last two games than elsewhere in the season of just we made a decision coming out of the locker room. We are going to win this game. And that is Brent Venables branded if I've ever seen it. Do what you have to do to win. Be good on the little things. Be good on the details. Don't go quietly. Keep fighting no matter what you got. That is the Brent Venables brand right there. Hot iron stuck on every single kid in that locker room. And that really, that leads me into my whole BV tangent that I have for today. I have been a member of the Brent Venables faithful since he was hired in December 2021. 2022 was rough. I get it. But remember, his entire roster had been massacred by the Riley abandonment of 2021. And he didn't have any semblance of a defense. And the offense was actually still pretty dang good. And then 2023 was a great step in the right direction. 10-2 in the regular season. Missed on a couple close ones. Could have been 12-0. But a good step in the right direction. And I was still sold he was the guy after seeing the trend upwards. I'm like, great. 2024 was impossible to watch. As a Oklahoma fan since birth, that was painful to watch. But the injuries were insane. The offensive line and the receivers just, oh man. I still believed, though, that Brent Venables was the guy. Despite all the naysayers and all the haters saying, he's got to go, he's got to go. Nah, man. I was on the wagon still. And this year, even though we still have 2 games left to go and we could absolutely shit the bed and go 8-4, which I don't think we will, but if it happens, I still think in spite of that possibility that this year has shown that Brent Venables is the guy to lead Oklahoma in the future. This Oklahoma team is 3-0 in true road games in the SEC. That is fantastic, especially given the struggles they've had on offense throughout that 5-week period where they did go on the road. 2 South Carolina, then you had Ole Miss at home, Tennessee, then a bye, then Alabama, right? In those 3 road games, with the issues you were having on offense, you were still able to win all 3 of them. That's pretty dang awesome. That is impressive in my book. And it's that Brent mentality of never say die, excellence in your details. Love your teammates, love the game, love the preparation, love the grind and the fight every single day. And it's paying off in spades. I think he's injected that into the veins of every single kid in that locker room. And it's paying off because we were on the doorstep of going to the college football playoff under Brent Venables with a elite Brent Venables branded defense and an offense that is not screwing itself over. And I think that goes to show what I've been saying for years before I even started doing all this, and I just say it in conversation. If Brent Venables gets the tools he needs, a healthy roster, functional quarterback, minimal turnover on staff, and the proper resources, he can do it. He was under Bob Stoops for the better part of 12, 13 years, I think it was, as defensive coordinator. And then Schneider back at Kansas State as well, back in the 90s. And then with Dabo Swinney over at Clemson there in the 2010s. Brent Venables has been around enough greats of head coaches in college football for 30 years to know what needs to be done. And he has beaten the best in Nick Saban in national championships. Right? He knows how to get the job done. Give him the tools he needs. Give him the war chest that any team would need, that any coach would need to be successful. Give him those tools and he will do the job. He will get it done. He just needed the time to tee himself up and get a consistent play out of the defense, install his system, get the staff he wanted, and get better consistent play out of the offense, and get a front office like he has with Jim Nagy and those guys taking care of recruiting on his behalf, and or helping that not necessarily taking care of it on his behalf because the coaches are still heavily involved with recruiting, but manage a lot of the other stuff so Brent can focus more on doing what he needs to do on the field. Brent Venables can do it. He is a good head coach. And I've had so many close friends of mine that I've gotten into heated arguments where we haven't talked for a couple days afterwards about me saying I think Brent Venables is the man for the job, and they think I'm crazy. Brent Venables is the guy. BV is him. And to quote one Lyanna Mormont from Game of Thrones, we know no king but the king in Norman whose name is Brent. 100%. I am a Brent Venables fan. I will sit with that guy till the day I die. He is my king from this day until his last day. 100%. I think he's the man for the job. He will get us back to an Natty someday. I really believe that. Now, next steps. We're 8-2. We're 8-2. We're ranked number 8 in the AP poll as of Sunday afternoon. And that victory against Tennessee, right? That was great, but this Alabama win's an even bigger one. This is the program-defining win. This is a program-defining win under Brent Venables. Go to Alabama and beat them. But we can't get complacent. Everything is in our hands right now. We go win these next 2 games, we are in the college football playoff with a chance to host a playoff game at home, which would be huge. I would go. Absolutely, I would go. There is everything is right here in our hands, right? It's all right here for the taking. And all we have to do is go take it. We have to handle business at home. We cannot give up dumb stuff in the next 2 weeks. We've got Missouri this Saturday. Eli Drinkwitz and Matt Zoller and Ahmad Hardy, they're coming to town. All right? Oklahoma's favored by 9.5 right now. Great. I'd love to see, because Ahmad Hardy went for 300 yards on Saturday against Mississippi State. I'd love to see him match up against his Oklahoma front seven. That's going to be a fun matchup to watch. I'm excited about that. And I'm actually planning on going to this game as well. So, despite the spread right now at 9.5, and I bet you it'll shrink maybe a little bit, but knowing this staff and this team, they won't allow complacency to set in, because beat Tennessee, went right back to work, enjoyed it for a night, went home, got back to work for 2 weeks, and got ready to go to war. And they went to T-Town and they did it. Lost to Texas, same thing. Lost to Ole Miss, it sucked, but they got right back up and they went back to work against Tennessee. This team does not seem to have the problem as previous Oklahoma teams, in that they do not have that complacency issue where they go win a big game and then they're high on it. Like in 2023, Oklahoma did have the Texas hangover. Almost lost to UCF the next week, then struggled with Kansas and Oklahoma State in the weeks following. So I don't think complacency is going to be an issue, but we still can't allow it, right? Got to handle business at home. And after beating Missouri at home this upcoming Saturday, we've got LSU coming to Norman. And Garrett Nussmeier's gone, or he's not gone, but he didn't start against Arkansas. And odds are he will not start again in 2 weeks. And DJ Durkin is now head coach at LSU, or interim head coach, filling in for Brian Kelly. And so, actually, wait, DJ Durkin, what am I saying? No, DJ Durkin is the DC at Auburn. What am I saying? Oh my gosh, that's embarrassing. Oh my gosh, why did I think that? Frank Wilson. I don't know why I thought DJ Durkin. What the heck is wrong with me? Yeah, we can forget I did that. That's embarrassing. Anyways, I digress. But you've got Frank Wilson, okay? Frank Volleyball. Frank Wilson is coming to Norman with his LSU Tigers. OU's likely going to be favored in that one too. And they have difficulty running the ball. And their passing game has not been great. We'll see what happens with their passing game over this next week before they come to town as well. See if that improves at all with their backup. But don't let the success go to our heads. Won't be a problem, I don't think. And then handle business at home and dominate it. Honestly, I'd like to see us use these next two games as an offensive workshop stretch, right? Defense is fine, but cook up some good stuff to where offense gets in a rhythm. You find out stuff that works and doesn't work. Open up that passing game. Get more of it. We need more passing touchdowns here. Because if we want to compete in the playoffs, which if we go 10-2, we are going to the playoffs, need to figure out more offensive success. Need to dial that up. But yeah, that's what I'd like to see. But final thoughts on that, just lock in for Missouri. All right, it's an 11 a.m. kick at home there in Norman. Should be nice and cozy. I'm going to be there, looking to, or at least planning on being there. Still have a couple things to iron out if I can make it or not. But got to go in, got to dominate. Got to strangle him to death. Just choke him. Because remember, last year's heartbreaker against Missouri. That, oh man. However, don't get choked up on revenge games either. All right? Don't get choked up on revenge because as Eli or Peyton, but one of the Bowen brothers said going into the Alabama game, revenge only gets you so far. You got to go play the game and you got to win it. But yeah, Missouri on Saturday. Let's go get her done. Well, Sooner Nation, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Wacko Review Podcast, where we break down all things OU football every Monday after the weekend. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell button so you never miss an episode. We're available on YouTube and Spotify. Plus, you can also follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter X, all at Wacko Sooners for live news updates, game highlights, and, of course, a couple of memes and reels to keep it lighthearted and fun like we like it here in Sooner Nation. So go hit those follows so you're always in the Wacko loop. With that being said, have a great week. We will see you on Friday for our Missouri Wacko preview. Well, guys, have a good one. Boomer Sooner.